Jane Cox, and I come from a very research psychology background. So I've spent about 10 years doing research across a variety of psychological contexts. And I've just recently started a PhD looking at how we can combine interactive technology and game design actually with psychological principles to help us in therapeutic settings, but also how we design games for behaviour change effectively. So I just want to start off with this quote, both Tara and Mark have already touched on a lot of this, the power of interactivity and how we can create environments and contexts that are actually very, very powerful. So you've probably just read it already, I'll read it out for you, but much like photographs, paintings, literature, music, and gardens, environments as well, are capable of transmitting a full range of human experience from one human to another, so too can games. Games are starting to be taken really seriously now. Due to their interactivity, the installation, she was talking about a particular installation, suggests that games are capable of a higher form of communication, one which actively engages the participant and makes them a part of the experience rather than a passive observer. So this is the thing, is games actually engage you. How do games do that? So let's talk a little bit about the psychology of games and why we're motivated to play. So it goes back to self-determination theory, which is a core theory of motivation and why we do the things that we do. Why do people play games? Are they useful to us? Why do we do it? A lot of people think it's a little bit of a waste of time. But they actually engage the three key features of human motivation, which are competence, autonomy, and relatedness. So competence is the feeling that you can actually achieve what you've set out to achieve. And in a game world, this is designed really beautifully to start training you on low levels of achievement, and as you level up and get better and play the game for longer, you're actually achieving those higher levels of competence. So games are really good at meeting that human intrinsic need for being competent. They're also really good at autonomy. They're giving you choices and you're making decisions within game worlds, and so you actually enhance that sense of autonomy. They're also really good at providing us opportunities for relatedness. Relatedness within the context of the environment of the game, but also social relatedness of the people that we play games with. So in terms of our three core needs for motivation to do things, games are great at satisfying those. They're also great at helping us to flourish. And I'll talk about perma theory for a moment, which is the 5 key features of life, effectively, that help us to not just be mentally healthy, but to actually be mentally flourishing. And they are positive emotion, engagement and activity, relationships, meaning and accomplishment. So again, they're very similar to self-determination theory, but I guess it's splitting that up into when you're doing an activity and when you're playing a game, you actually get to experience all of these 5 key features of flourishing. So that's a little bit of the background of why we play games from a psychological perspective. And in terms of, look at that, transitions. In terms of games actually starting to get serious, we know that from the recent Digital Australia report that the overwhelming majority of Australia is actually playing games now. So digital, on their computer, on their PlayStations, on their mobile devices. And they're not just playing games for entertainment, they're playing them for serious reasons. They're playing them for education and training, they're playing them for wellbeing, they're playing them for connection. And there's a whole sub-industry in the games industry called serious games. And these are games which are not just designed and are applicable for serious reasons, but they're designed with the very strong intent for a particular outcome above and beyond just education. So there's just games being designed specifically for therapy. They're not just entertainment, they're designed for a specific outcome, and they are all based on evidence. So it's a really big growing market. So this first one over here, this is quite an amazing game actually. It's an empathy builder, and it's intended to change how your attitudes. And it's called A Breathtaking Journey. It's actually a game which was developed recently in Europe. to help people foster increased sense of empathy for others. So it's not quite a therapeutic example, but it definitely is designed for change. What it is it's a simulation, a VR simulation of what it feels like to be in a war-torn country as a refugee escaping over the border. And it is incredibly successful at enhancing empathy for others, not just refugees, but across the board for other people in difficult social circumstances. The second one is a video game designed by a family, actually. It's a really amazing game called Ninja Pizza Girl. And as you can imagine, it's about a girl who is a ninja that delivers pizzas. And again, this is a game about bullying, and it's a game for teenage girls to actually increase their sense of self-esteem, tackle bullying, and build resilience. That's also really successful. And like, it doesn't look like it does that. You know, there's a difference between a teacher standing up in front of the classroom, teaching didactically, you know, let's have a self-esteem, you know, talking about it, and actually girls playing this game and doing that naturally through gameplay experiences. The third example is the Dragon Collective Trilogy, which is an educational game about learning Japanese, but it's actually a transmedia game, so it actually takes you out into the world utilising real place technology, augmented reality, emails, there's websites that you need to visit, there's note passing from one student to the other so that they can actually practice their Japanese. It's a Japanese lesson, but it's really cool. So they're just a couple of the examples of games that are being made. I won't go into too much detail about this. This is very text and theory heavy, but this is just a quick overview of my PhD, which is essentially combining the fields of psychology, game design and storytelling so that we can create a framework to actually tell game designers how to harness all of the psychological theory behind flourishing and positive change and behaviour change. So if anyone wants to speak to me about this afterwards, then I'll be more than happy to chat forever about this. So just getting back on with games as therapy tools, there's a few more examples that I'd like to talk about in recent studies. First one is brain training versus Portal 2. I'm sure you've all heard of brain training and Lumosity. Has anyone not heard of that? Everyone's heard of it, of course you have. They advertise very well. Portal 2 is a video game, which is a spatial puzzler, basically, is more effective than Lumosity at developing cognition and the cognitive measures that Lumosity wants to develop. And Lumosity particularly targets older adults and things like that. Portal is actually much better at developing those things. So again, games are really good at doing what they do, which is problem solving, developing problem solving, developing those spatial skills, and also encouraging persistence through that incremental build of autonomy and competence. Another example is Think, Feel, Do. This is a video game that's based on cognitive behavioural therapy, provides therapy for depression, and again shows significant improvement in depressive symptoms after just 6 sessions of playing this video game. Another one is Sparks. This is developed over the pond in New Zealand, and the goal is you have to defeat gnats, which is a really cool nasty little animal which runs around the environment, and it's your job to restore natural order in the environment by defeating these gnats. They're actually negative automatic thoughts, which is something that we experience when we have depressive symptoms or anxiety symptoms. It's really successful at reducing symptoms and increasing your mood. So again, there's lots of examples of specific games that are really great at therapy, and it's because of those satisfying those core psychological needs. So now I'll talk about 3 specific case examples. This one is Pokemon Go. Who has heard of Pokemon Go? Yes, everyone. Who has played Pokemon Go? Excellent. A couple of you. Excellent. So this came out just over a year ago now, and it just took the mobile game industry by absolute storm. And it was a bit of a surprise actually, because a lot of people who don't necessarily consider themselves a game player were finding themselves installing this on their mobile phone and giving it a go. So yeah, you all know what it is. It's an augmented reality mobile game. But is it actually a serious game? Well, a lot of the professionals in the serious games industry think it is, because what it does, it gets us to change our behaviour. And the behaviour is going out, going for walks, wanting to find things, connecting with other people that you wouldn't necessarily have connected with before, enhancing your existing relationships by going to play Pogo together. That's Pokemon Go for short. So there's just a couple of quotes of people. I did a survey last year when it was released, and we sent out a survey. We had almost 1,000 responses. And you probably can't see it very well, but I'm happy to email that little infographic to anyone who needs that later. But overwhelmingly, you can see that, I can't even read it, because almost 80% of players thought that the game's predominant thing was improving their mental health and wellbeing. Almost 80% of the players thought that that's what it was for and that's what it was doing. It was successful at doing that. And how was it doing that? It was getting people outside. So that's how it relates very well to this particular talk. It was actually getting people to engage in their environment. It was doing exercise, so it was getting them to be more active than they were before. It was exploring their community, and finding things. Like me and my sons, we played it almost every day for a good couple of months. And we'd find things in our environment that we didn't even know were there. Little, statues and little, lots of little things. So it's relaxing, gets you connected to other people. So it was really, really important game. And the example is a really important one because it can show you how it can get people utilising technology to connect with nature. And I think we can do this a lot better now that we know the success of this particular game. We can do it maybe in a more intentional way and perhaps in a more appealing way to different age groups, because the uptake with this game was vastly, the majority of uptake was in the 20-year, between 20 and 30 years of age. So we can design games that are actually going to appeal to different age ranges now, utilising this kind of framework. So the second example I'll talk about is Snow World, which is a virtual reality game for burn victims. And this one is an incredible game which was designed to immerse the player in a world of snow and give them jobs to do, and like a normal game, level up, increasing in difficulty, and they were friends of the polar bear and they went around and did things in this game. So it was an ordinary game, virtual reality game, but the difference was it was delivered in hospital during wound care sessions, so that it would distract and depersonalise the person, take them away from their current context, put them in a different context. It was amazingly successful. Snow World, without pain relief, Snow World was more effective at pain reduction than morphine. So 30 to 50% of people experience less pain even after playing the game than people who are having morphine after playing the game. This is an incredible win for situational games and immersive environments. Case study 3 is Nevermind, which has been used as a psychological therapy or building your mental health toolkit. It is, as you can see on the left picture, very scary horror game. It's actually quite awful. This game, it's to train you to relax. And has anyone heard of this game at all? No. So again, it's a VR game, but it's a biofeedback game. So that means they'll actually detect neurological patterns, your heartbeat, and a whole variety of other statistics on your current bio stats. And that feeds back into how the game is going. So the more anxious you are, and obviously the less relaxed you are, the harder the game becomes. So you actually have to calm yourself down, and it gives you tips on how to do this at the beginning of the game and throughout difficult scenes, to control your breathing, to close your eyes, to repeat, relaxing statements to yourself, get you to calm down. And as soon as you can calm down, the game becomes easier and you can get through it to the end. So basically by the time you reach the end of the game, you're quite relaxed and you're pretty chill, even though it's a disaster of a horror thing. So I don't recommend playing that, but I do recommend playing it. Okay, and I'll just finish off with saying that with all of these things, the future is looking really, really promising. We're currently now developing all kinds of ways to harness AR, VR, biofeedback technology to actually train people, to get them to positively engage in different contexts and for therapy as well. Some colleagues of mine, Opaque Space, they've currently won a contract with the new Australian Space Agency that was announced a couple of weeks ago. They're going to be developing a game to train astronauts to go to the moon and to the ISS. Right? So this is really amazing. Games are doing this and game developers are doing this. And it's not just about simulating that environment, it's creating game situations in which they can actually calm down, because this is really scary stuff, going outside on the ISS, and if you let go, then you're just going to float off into space. That's a really anxiety-inducing situation. So part of developing a game for this context is building in that building up of resiliency and building up of the confidence and the belief in yourself, that self-efficacy. So that's all part of the game design. It's really important. So we could develop using all of the technology that we already have in home therapy where access is a concern. So, remote age, mobility, health, security concerns, even things like prisons and things like that where rehabilitation and therapy is going to be required. This is where technology and VR technology can actually be really, really useful. Shared social environments in VR to facilitate social connection and sense of place. So with friends that you've been separated with or family that are in completely different places, you can actually be sitting in the same lounge room together, having a chat. And maybe even tourism of the future, anywhere in the universe. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Good everyone, I'm Desh Malani.